Now, each reactor needs 1 million gallons a minute to keep it cool. And that comes from the ocean or from a lake or from a river. So what happened at Fukushima was there was an earthquake. And that really damaged the reactors, although TEPCO wouldn't say so at the time, Tokyo Electric Power Company. And the reactors sunk over 2 feet into the ground. The ground lowered because there was a tremendous earthquake. And what happened was, during the earthquake, they lost the external power supply, which supplies the power to the pumps to keep the cooling water going. Well, because of that possibility, each reactor has 2 huge diesel generators about the size of this room, each one, underneath the reactor. And so you start the diesel generators when you lose your power supply, right? But then in came a tsunami. And it drowned the diesel generators. And there was no way to cool 6 reactors. And there was absolute pandemonium at the plant. The workers didn't know what was happening. They were operating in the dark. They couldn't see anything. There was no one in control. They wanted to run away, and they knew that there would be meltdowns. What happened was, within the first 48 hours, the heat is so intense in this radioactive fuel that it melts. The whole thing melts. And there were 3 meltdowns, which has never occurred before in the history of the atomic age. 3 meltdowns in units 1, 2, and 3. And the uranium melts and sort of puddles on the floor. It melts through the reactor vessel, which is 6 inches thick of steel. And then it melted through onto the containment floor, which is made of concrete. And it formed a sort of radioactive puddle, if you like, and it's called corium. So hot that no one could ever go near it. In fact, one nuclear fuel rod, if you pull it out and put it on the ground, if you stand next to it for a couple of seconds, you'll get a lethal dose of gamma radiation, like X-rays. A lethal dose means that within 2 weeks, your hair starts falling out, because radiation damages the actively dividing cells of the body, which are the hair cells, the gut cells, so you develop severe nausea, vomiting and diarrhea, and it kills the blood-forming cells, the platelets, which form clotting. And the white. So that's what happened. At the same time, when it gets very hot, zirconium reacts with water at about 1500 degrees centigrade to create hydrogen. And there was supposed to be a relief valve going out to release the hydrogen if that happened. But it turned out that 2 men had to go and turn the relief valve to open it up. And they couldn't open it up. So hydrogen built up within the reactor, and there were 4 explosions in building 1, 2, 3, and 4. And in fact, in the spent fuel, and on the roof of these reactors are the spent fuel pools full of incredibly radioactive fuel that they've lifted out. They take 30 tons of spent fuel out every year because it's so radioactive and full of contaminants it doesn't work anymore. And they put them in the fuel pools on racks. And they're 100 feet above the ground. And there were hydrogen explosions which blew the top off the buildings and the top off the fuel pool. In fact, in fuel pool 3, we think there was actually a nuclear explosion because plutonium, which was in the fuel itself, was found, well, I've got the data here, many kilometres away, and plutonium is so deadly that 1/1,000,000th of a gram, if inhaled, will cause cancer. And I'll talk to you a bit about plutonium in a minute. So there was absolute pandemonium. The government was talking about evacuating Tokyo. There was absolute terror. The Prime Minister was talking about that, but there's 30 million people in Tokyo, where do you send them? And luckily for the Japanese, the wind was blowing from the west to the east. And therefore, in the first few days of the accident, where the most amount of radiation escaped, it blew across the Pacific. And huge amounts of that radiation were dumped in the Pacific Ocean, which is our ocean. Had it blown over Japan, Japan would much of it would be uninhabitable now, and many people would be dying of acute radiation illness. Some already are, I think, from reports. So that's what happened at Fukushima, and I'll go through that more fully